Hi, Jamie.
Hi. Hi, Aileen. We are so happy to have you, and we're so happy to have those of you in the audience. My name is Jamie Seward. I'm the Associate Director of Affinity Engagement Programs with the Office of Alumni Relations. And before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor, the Healthcare Affinity. Now, before we begin, I encourage you to ask any questions you have by typing them in the Zoom Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We also have the chat open, but it's easier for us if you put your questions in the Q&A. We'll have time to answer your questions at the end of the program. So how are you today,
Great.
Aline?
Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Well, we're so happy that you're here. And I wanted to start off by asking you about your background. Can you tell us about your background and about your time at Hopkins?
Sure. Well, I first started out at Hopkins as an undergraduate. I was majoring in psychology at the School of Arts and Sciences. And like so many people I knew, I was a pre-med and graduated in 92, but I still didn't really know what I wanted to do after I graduated because I think really deep down inside, I always wanted to be an artist. And at the time wasn't really considered a quote unquote real career by my folks. So it took me a while to find my way. And I, in fact, almost enrolled at the School of Public Health at Hopkins, but I actually stumbled across the master's program in art as applied to medicine. So I actually also attended the School of Medicine to get my master's degree in medical and biological illustration. And that was a great experience as well. It really, it was almost like uncovering a gem that I never even really knew about when I was an undergrad at Hopkins. And it turns out, it's one of the few programs in the US and in North America, in fact, and the first program ever. And the man who started it, Max Bradel, actually worked with a lot of well-known surgeons on important new procedures at the time and illustrated those. So I really enjoyed my time there. And after graduating, I worked for a company that did a lot of continuing education for physicians and patient education because it was a time where the internet was just really exploding. And so I had a chance to work on projects like illustrating the molecular structure of the HIV virus for the Aaron Diamonds AIDS Center for Dr. Ho. And from there, I went on to work at Interactive Agency in Baltimore because I found I really enjoyed web design and thinking about the interactive components. And so I guess fast forward to now, I've started my own creative agency, Astriata, here in Baltimore. And we focus on, creating better experiences for people online because, over the 20 years, I've really seen how the way people consume information and access information has really changed. So much is online these days. And so I think design can play an important role in that and making sure that information is easy to understand and it's accessible so that people can make informed decisions. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of how I got to where I am and how it's all started at Hopkins.
Well, thank you. And I want to apologize to everybody. My dogs are very excited about something, but we're going to just keep going and try and ignore them. So you have this psychology degree. Now, how do you use that in your work?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So many of us don't always end up working the career that that we majored in college, but for me, it almost came full circle. It's not that I work in the field of psychology, but I do use some of the things I learned and that interest plays an important role. So, for example, when we're designing user interfaces, we really try to think about um, how how people make decisions, what's going to motivate them to take the next steps, and really understanding you know how people interact. So we take that into consideration. And for us, design isn't just an aesthetic thing. It serves a purpose, and so everything has an intention when you're designing. So we're always trying to lead people through the information that we want them to access.
That's very interesting. It sounds like you're very thoughtful and you put a lot of work and time and energy into everything that you do. So tell us how you decided to start your own business. That's a very exciting journey.
It is. I'd love to say that I had a great idea and I started that way, but the reality is at the time, I was working for the interactive agency, and there was the 2001 dot-com bust. And so ended up starting my own company back then, Link Studio, because our clients still needed the work to be completed. And I continued that way for a long time. But then a couple of years ago, I started also another business called User Happy and Astriata. And so User Happy is a tool that we created to help with the usability testing. So, seeing and gaining insights on what people are doing on their websites, so that we can come up with a strategy for our clients as to how to help people have a better user experience. And that came about because there were tools out there that we were using, and it didn't really have all the functionality we needed. So kind of the necessity, created the need for that. And then Astriata came about because since starting in the medical and health vertical, we've expanded to other areas like professional associations or higher ed and B2B clients. And I wanted to have a new brand that people could associate with Astriata. And also we had a chance to acquire a company. One of my clients was leaving the business. So, that also gave me a chance to start something new a couple of years ago.
Well, that's very exciting. So how did you come up with the name? It's a very unique name.
Oh, thank you. Well, Astriata is actually inspired by the part of the brain called the striatum, and it's one of the principal components of the basal ganglia. And so maybe that's where some of the psychology comes in, because the striatum coordinates multiple aspects of cognition, and some of that being decision making and motivation. And so, as you've heard, that's a big part of what we think about in design. So I thought, that worked well with what we were trying to let people know about us.
Well, that's very, very cool. Now, did you self-fund or did you raise funding for your business?
I self-funded, and some of that I think has to do with maybe my own personality, and that it felt the risk taking and maybe not having the right partner yet to go get that funding. I came into the business because I just liked doing the work, and so the business part of it almost was the part that just came with it, that I had to deal with, and I've learned to like over the years. But it wasn't. I didn't come in thinking I was going to create the next big thing or anything like that. It was just really doing what I love. And so for me, I was most comfortable just bootstrapping it right now. It's a little slower, definitely, and that can be a little frustrating. But I think until I have maybe the right partner to grow it differently, this is the way we're going about it.
Well, that's very exciting. Now, how there might be some entrepreneurs in the audience and people in business. So I just want to ask you, how do you build a successful customer base? And I know we're in a pandemic right now, so that's probably challenging, but how do you do that?
Yeah, I think for us, we've been really lucky in that a lot of our business comes from referrals. And that happens because I think we really try to put out high quality work, just making sure that the work we put out is something that people are going to be excited about and tell their friends about. And, we always try to go above and beyond and really make every project, we look at that as a unique project, and it's the importance of it. I think it's humbling that clients entrust us with their business, and, being able to establish either the brand or, helping them with their product. So, we're just as invested in it as they are. And I think that goes a long way. And really it's just building upon that has worked well for us.
Well, that's great. So speaking of projects, can you tell us about a challenging project and what made it challenging?
Sure. I was thinking there are a lot of projects over the years, and each of them have different types of challenges, but I think maybe the most challenging one is just our own project, actually, and that is the User Happy project, which is that application that we're developing. And I think I don't have a technical background, so finding the right technical people to work on it. We got through a couple of different groups, and and then also trying to bootstrap it, trying to fund it ourselves, and then you're also working on client projects, so your own projects get pushed aside. So, there have been challenges like that. Um, and I think just, um, you know, going sometimes your own your own worst critic too, so that makes it a challenge as well.
Well, I'm sure it's wonderful. So on the flip side of that, on the
Mhm.
flip side of a challenging project, can you tell us about one of your favorite, most engaging projects and what made it a favorite?
Yeah, sure. I think the first one that comes to mind is this social marketing campaign that we worked on for the Office of Oral Health at the Maryland Department of Health. And the project was, addressing hypertension, because hypertension is one of, the major risk factors for heart disease and one of the leading causes of death in Maryland. And what they found is, people actually visit their dentists more often than they visit their primary physicians. And so that makes the dentists have a really important role in identifying the undiagnosed hypertension. So what we did for them was we came up with creative concepts for this campaign. How do we get people to be engaged in this, educating the public that they can get their blood pressure measured by certain dentists who are participating, and how to get the buy-in from dentists to actually make this part of their process. So they actually had a group of dentists that they were trying this out with, and our job was to come up with the messaging. We created a short video that played as a public service announcement in movie theaters, gas stations, advertisement on cable and network television. And then we also created a whole social media calendar and did media relations. We also did geo-targeting as well. So like, say if you had recently visited your dentist, you would most likely see this ad now, when you were visiting a website, to kind of reinforce the message. And it was really fun. We came up with little prescription pads that the dentist would write your blood pressure numbers. You take it home. It had like tips on how to, maintain a healthy diet and things like that, exercise. We also came up with postcards and posters that for the staff to reinforce why this was important they were doing it. When you go to the dentist, when you sign in, you would find the postcards. You could take that information with you. And we also came up with traveling banner exhibits that could be displayed at the public library. So, this was an opportunity too for the libraries to host events around this, or local dentists to come talk about it. So it was a lot of fun generating, all this visuals and messaging, and even actually at the bus stops that you might see this. And so we had a short period of time to execute this as well. After creating the creatives, we had 2 months to get this out to the public. And so within 2 months, we were able to get about just short of 4 million impressions online. And I'll let so our concept was 2 minutes with your dentist can save your life, because it takes about 2 minutes to take your blood pressure. And we can actually say that we know we saved one life, because one of the patients actually had gotten their blood pressure taken, and they were so concerned about it, they immediately went to the hospital, and they actually had a heart attack while they were there. And so they credited this campaign and saving your life. And so for me, that was like really impactful. And I like, wow, like this could really make a difference. So that was really the most rewarding project that we've dealt with. And would love to do more social marketing campaigns like that.
Well, that's amazing. Good for you. I mean, it's amazing when your work can make such an impact, and an impact that you know about, you know?
Right,
So
right.
kudos to you. So I do have a question in the Q&A that I would love
Sure.
to pose to you.
Yeah.
So an audience member is asking, what does user happy actually do? And what do you feel the field needs next?
Yes. So what User Happy does is it allows us to have either moderated or unmoderated sessions with, say, like our client has a target audience they want to learn more about, and so the application will record what the person's saying out loud and also what they're doing on their screen, and it's a task-based procedure. So we work with our clients to come up with specific tasks that are important for someone to be able to complete, say on your website or your application. And the application delivers that question to them, and then they would try to complete the task. But we're also doing things like measuring time on tasks, the number of errors that occur, meaning do they go down the wrong pathways. We're looking at common pathways that people take too. So for example, often people think, well, people are going to go to path X, Y, and Z to get the information, but it turns out their navigation is so confusing on their website, they're just going to the search bar. So think like making sure people are moving through the content the way you need. And so with this application, we're getting insights, and then we're also capturing data. And we have a survey that we use to also try to quantify some of their reactions, usability ratings. We do a product reaction cards, meaning they choose adjectives that they associate with your site or product. And what's great is if you can do this before and after a project, you can really compare, have data that shows that you've actually made an improvement on the user experience. And I'm sorry, I think I forgot the second part of the question.
Oh, that's okay. The audience member asked, what do you think the field needs?
Yeah, what the field needs, well, in terms of design field, I'm guessing, if it is in terms of design, or I think really continuing with improving that user experience. Some of the things that are coming up, I think, in the area too, are looking at user experiences with artificial intelligence. I think that's really important. A lot of, we have a lot more voice activated things that, whether it's Alexa or, even chat bots online, but, making sure that experience is a good one for people.
That's great. So I wanted to talk about the culture of your organization. So I imagine you started small and you've grown it. About how many employees do you have now?
So right now we have 10 employees, and then, we also work with subcontractors, which is probably another 10 to 15 people. And, so I feel that, we were much smaller just a couple of years ago, but, last year when we acquired the other company, we grew quickly. And so I feel that's really over the past year that the culture has developed. And, it's something I had thought about when I started the company, but it's not until you're in it that you kind of understand how that evolves more, and sort of and what you want that to look like and be. And I feel that, the culture that we have is that, it's really important, not, of course, not only the quality of the work that we're doing, but staying curious, and flexible. I think we want to always be learning. I think that's really important in having a company that lasts a long time and is relevant to what people need. And so we really try to foster, people to explore things, maybe get out of their comfort zone sometimes too, I think is a good idea. So, and really just great customer service, of course, something that we really value as well.
So what qualities do you look for when you're trying to hire someone or bring someone into your work family?
Yeah, so that's been something I've been learning a lot about too, just learning how to hire as well, like, and as you said, what to look for. So, for me, I am looking for that person who is willing to go above and beyond, because they love what they do. You know, f- as a small company, I think everyone has to play a lot of different roles and be willing to jump in on things. So I think, someone who is invested that way is important, especially when you're starting out. And, I think someone, like I said, someone who's curious and wants to learn, they're willing to jump in and dive in there, not afraid to ask questions. And I think, it's really that attitude, I think, is really important. I think there are a lot of things you can teach people, but there are a lot of things that are innate in that, that natural curiosity and wanting to go the extra mile on things. It's not just a job for them. This is something they're really interested in, have a passion about.
Sounds like it'd be a really fun place to work. So, being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, it can be scary. How do you manage your fears and concerns, especially in a time like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's always certain risk involved, starting your own business. And I think some of it is doing your homework, making sure your stuff, that you're able to offer things of value to your customers, reaching out to people, um, forming strategic alliances with other companies. But I have to say, a lot of it's also um, an element of staying optimistic and maybe naive sense of, like, I guess I had the viewpoint, like, as long as I'm working hard and doing what I should be doing, I think eventually, like, we'll see the rewards. So I think there's a little bit of that sort of, naive optimism, maybe not, but I think that goes a long way sometimes. Like, you don't want to, not consider, obvious, like, risks and things like that, but you do have to, you have to believe in what you're doing.
I think that's great. I think a positive attitude gets you very far in life. So how do you envision your business growing over the next years? Let's look
Yeah.
into the future for a minute and say we have a vaccine, the pandemic is going to go away, we're back to normal. How do you see your business growing? How do you want it to grow?
Right. Well, I mean, I'd love to grow in terms of, the size that we are, so that we can take on more challenging projects. I'd like to see user happy as an application grow in terms of something that we could offer to other businesses. We just use it internally right now, but maybe um, a product that people subscribe to, so that they too can also gain the insights they need to improve their own sites. But I really want us to be known um, as a leader in creating better user experiences in the area. That we can help people out and provide information to them that will be helpful. Having maybe our own little research department that puts out you know our own research that we're doing, that we can share with other people. But I think that's that would be a great place to be.
That's great. So you're an entrepreneur. Do you think that there's like a pattern or a formula for being a successful entrepreneur?
um you know I don't know if there's necessarily a formula, but I think there are probably some common elements. I think some of it is, like I said, that optimism, being willing to take some risks, being I think you have to be able to be flexible too, like being willing to pivot, especially with the pandemic right now. I've seen a lot of other businesses having to pivot quickly, and the ones that do are able to survive. And so I think some of it's your attitude and the activities that you're doing. So making sure that you're disciplined about doing the things you want to do, setting time aside to do business development or work on your projects, and really forming relationships that everyone can help each other out.
That's really good advice. And so those are basically the key activities you would recommend entrepreneurs to invest their time in. Is there anything else in the organizations? Like, do you feel those networking groups are worthwhile? I know that some.
um, I think they are. You just have to be I think uh, you know I guess picky, maybe. I don't know, that's right, as to which ones you attend. Because they can take a lot of time. So you want to make sure you're networking with people in your target audience. I think makes sense. And I find sometimes joining associations, that our clients are in is good. It gives you opportunities to also offer advice and, through speaking events or workshops, things that you can be involved in like that as well. Um, and I think, the other thing I was going to mention, Jamie, too, for entrepreneurs that are, say, starting their own products or applications, things like that, some advice I would give too is, it's really important to incorporate that usability testing early on. A lot of times I think people they want to quickly, and I understand, it may seem like the budget is small, you're trying to get a minimal viable product out there quickly, but that initial investment to make sure that that experience goes well could be the big difference. A lot of products all do the same thing, but it's really the experience. Like, for example, when I first started out, everyone was using WebEx, as the, application you would use to do these online meetings. And I just remember every time I go on it, it'd be like reinventing the wheel. Like, how do I get on? How do I share? And then Zoom, the reason Zoom came much later than WebEx, but it's so popular because it's easy to use. And so I think that investment in that is important. And there's actually been research that has been shown that, every dollar that you invest in usability research brings back like $100, return on investment. And the companies that do invest in that type of design perform much better. So, the earlier you can catch things, it's actually going to be less expensive for you to deal with it later. So, making sure you have that iterative testing throughout your cycle of your project or your development, I think is worthwhile.
That's great advice. I mean, you always say you have to spend money to make money. So
Exactly.
the ROI is good. So if you had the chance to start your career all over again, what, if anything, would you do differently?
Gosh, I think I I would have probably networked more. I think because of the way I came about the business, as I was just kind of doing my work as a designer and not really thinking as a business person. I think I could have grown the business a lot faster, had I had done that and, gotten further along in the business. And part of it, I think, was, I was just busy doing my own work and, referrals were coming in. So I didn't really have to think about marketing myself. But also, I am an introvert. And so it's, hard to push myself out there to do networking events. But I found that the business community is actually a very welcoming one. Everyone actually is in the same boat that you are. They're all, trying to make it. And so people are much more willing to help out. And there are a lot of other people out there that are uncomfortable in those situations as well. And one thing I also learned was, because I always felt like, well, I'm not really a salesperson or anything, like, I don't have that. And I think I've learned that, as long as you really love what you're doing, like that passion comes through to people. And, that's what really sells, what you do or your product or your service to other people.
That's great. So I have a question from an audience member. How do you keep fresh and find time for self-care as a busy business person? That is an awesome question. I would like to know the answer to
I know, I think I would too. But
that.
I think it is certainly a challenge. And you're balancing family life too. And with the pandemic, with kids doing online learning and you're juggling a lot of things. It is really important to try to find time for yourself. And I almost think, at least for me, you have to schedule that time because otherwise you're you know you're the last thing on the list. And so I think scheduling that time is helpful. And I also think having a network of other entrepreneurs that you can talk to every night to talk about things that aren't, I mean, it's related to business but not related to business, right? Like, how are you dealing with kids learning at home, how are you balancing your family life with business. And so for me, I have a close network of female entrepreneurs where we have a lot of those shared experiences. And hearing other people and how they deal with it, or just that you're sharing common problems, makes you feel refreshed in an odd way, right? But you feel like you're not the only one out there, and everyone has ideas as to what you can do.
Yeah, that's good advice. So we have another question, and this jumps back
Mhm.
to the your favorite, most successful project you worked on
Mhm.
with the dental
Sure.
association. So this audience member
Mhm.
said, you said it took 2 months. You had 2 months to get it together. And was that how long it took you to develop that from start to finish?
No, no, that's a great question. So the 2 months was actually the time period of when the campaign launched and when the campaign ended. So developing the campaign, it was actually pretty short as well. We had 4 months to do that. So from developing the campaign to actually producing all the design work was about 4 months. Ideally, I would say I would want a year to do something like that. But it can be done, and I think there are a lot of things I would have loved to work into it, so, but every project has its challenges, and there are very few projects that are ideal in terms of budget, time, and timeline.
Well, that's wonderful. So, um, if anyone has any questions, pop them in the Q&A. We'll give you another few minutes to do that. Um, and we, really appreciate you being here today. Um,
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions. So I will use this time to thank you for your
Well, thank
time and your
you.
talent. We totally appreciate you being here. I will share a follow-up email with our attendees with a recording of today's program, along with some resources and information in our event schedule. And we really do hope that you'll join us again for another webinar. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving. Be safe, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jamie.